We're going to move now to Ms. Kamna Chibber. She is the coordinator of clinical psychology and a consultant clinical psychologist. She has a master's in philosophy and clinical psychology with the Department of Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences at Max Healthcare. She's a trained cognitive behavioral therapist, and she conducts seminars and workshops for schools, corporate organizations, and has worked extensively in the Max School Mental Health Program and the Max Organizational Psychology Initiative. She has also been associated with and providing psychological inputs for initiatives run by NGOs like Plan India and Bachpan Bachao Andolan. She's going to talk to us a little bit about the difficulty of working with women who are in violent relationships.
Thank you, Dr. Ariel. I'd like to start by stating that the reason I chose this topic in particular today was with something which was highlighted by my colleague earlier as well, was that counseling is a very difficult process. It's something which is not very easy when you're working with individuals who've experienced domestic violence. Yet, when I say that, I also understand that if you look at the Indian scenario at present, there is a significant shortage of professionals that are available within our society as well. If you look at the recent WHO statistics, clinical psychologists, there's a 330% shortage. Psychiatrists, 220% shortage. How can we, as professionals, end up working in say the peripheries is really inconceivable if we try and look at this in a very realistic manner. So the reason I chose this topic was that if through this medium we can at least discuss some of the basic things, basic factors which need to be kept in mind when you're working with someone who has experienced domestic violence, then we are doing a service over here. So let me start. Let's take a moment and try and reflect. Let's look at our relatively normal lives and try and see, is there any one experience in your lives that can be even remotely equated to what someone who has experienced domestic violence would be going through? When I tried to do that, when I was preparing for this particular presentation, I could come up with nothing. Nothing, not because I have not experienced trauma or grief or emotional distresses, nothing because of the kind of impact that domestic violence has on an individual, on their very sense of self, on their very sense of their own being, wherein they start questioning not just their own selves, they question the people around them, the possibility of having a good future, the possibility of what existed in the past and even today. This very factor completely changes the scenario when you're working with anyone who's had this experience of domestic violence. And this can be best exemplified if we just try and look at some of the excerpts of what people have stated when they've experienced domestic violence. And I'll read out 3 or 4 of these statements. One of the victims stated that either dinner wasn't exactly what he wanted, the house wasn't immaculate, I didn't look presentable enough, any excuse at all really, and it was always my fault. It was very debilitating and I ended up walking on eggshells. I began questioning my own competence to do anything. And the key word being my own competence and not looking at the person who's sitting across from you and figuring out what wrong was he doing. Another victim states it started out slowly. At first, he just wanted to know where I was going all the time. And then he wanted to tell me where I was going all the time. And by the end, I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. Another victim states when people meet me and find out that I've been in an abusive relationship, they just can't believe it. They think, how could I have been in a relationship like that? And again, the question comes here, what is the other person perceiving me as? Can I even walk out of this relationship because what will the other say? And in an Indian society which is more shame-oriented than it is guilt-oriented, wherein people are motivated to take an action outside in the Western cultures, over here people prevent themselves from taking actions because they're not sure about how they're going to be judged by others around them. Another survivor states, I thought that I was worthless, that I couldn't do anything right. I thought I was ugly, just a horrible individual. No one would ever love me, and I myself was incapable of love. Total shattering of the self, nothing that any one of us would have ever experienced in our own lives, wherein we question our very own existence, our very own being. So what do we do when we come across such people? What do we do? What is the basic thing that we need to take care of when such people present themselves to us? Should we be an activist? Or can we take a therapist's role? Not, of course, a clinically trained therapist, but at least remotely applying some basic principles of therapy, which I'll try and highlight here, and hopefully they would act as an aid to everyone who's sitting here today in the audience. So the first and foremost thing would be belief. Believe the person who's sitting across from you. Don't question their abuse. Don't make them rethink whether I should be telling this person what has happened to me or not. Understand their experience. Understand the kind of humiliation, the embarrassment, the abuse, the neglect that they would have gone through, and what they would be thinking, the fears, the anxieties that would be underlying their own experiences, their own sense of being at this moment in time when he or she is choosing to come and talk to you. And help them take the decisions. Help them act as a support structure for them. Give them the time. Allow them to have the space that they can end up taking their own decisions, so that they do not feel that, okay, this person again is forcing me to do stuff. This is what used to happen to me in my past relationships, and now when I have someone to talk to, this is what this person is also doing to me. What we need to do is be involved. Most importantly, that's the basic thing. You need to be involved. You need to be involved in the life of this individual who's standing there in front of you. You need to be involved in the smaller nitty-gritties of their lives, which does not mean, again, that you take their decisions. But you're just there so that they can bounce off their ideas off you. And be aware of the fact that not every person who's experienced domestic violence is going to be the same. Every individual has his or her own needs. Every individual would have had diversity even in their experience. And every individual who's going to come up to you is going to be very different in the way they are thinking, in the way they are reacting, in the kind of emotional experience, in the kind of their behaviors. And that is something you always need to keep into account. And be committed. That's the basic. If you are committed to the cause, of course you will make a difference. Some of the key principles, one of the things that we were taught when we first entered our training programs was, forget sympathy, forget pity. Start empathizing, change your stance. Start getting into the shoes of the person who's sitting in front of you. That's when you'll actually understand what is happening, and that's what you need to do. That's what we all need to start doing. See from the perspective of the person who's sitting in front of you. That's when you'll actually have an understanding of their experience, and that's when you can actually start working with what they're saying. Because that person will then perceive that, okay, yeah, I'm being accepted for who I am. Even though my experience has changed me, but I am being accepted now for who I am. And see them as your equals. Just because they've had a bad experience does not make them lesser than you in any which way. They would still end up having some skills, some abilities, some qualities, some values in them which are much more admirable than what we may be possessing. It does not make us better than them just because we did not experience any kind of a bad thing in our own lives. And one of the other important things would be honoring their beliefs, their spiritual practices, their religious practices, their own thoughts around what their experience was. Negating what they feel and what they think about their own experience does not work. Because then again they're feeling that, okay, maybe I'm wrong, and you're again putting them on those eggshells that they went through in the first place. So honor their beliefs, honor their systems. What could be the potential solutions when you're working with such people? The basic of any relationship in this world is trust. Be it that between a mother and a child, be it that between a boyfriend and a girlfriend, be it between a teacher and a student, a husband and a wife, trust forms the foundation of everything. If there is no trust, there is going to be nothing. Your main aim needs to be to build trust. Help that person to be able to trust you. It will take time. Trust does not come out in an instant. Just because you stood there and you said that, okay, I understand you, that is not going to bring trust. It will take you time, it will require effort on your part. That person will hate you also at times and is going to throw back a lot of stuff at you, and yet you will have to stand there like a pillar, very strong, and keep on taking whatever they tell you. And that's when the trust is going to come. There are times even when in our therapy situations, when patients suddenly become angry and aggressive at something that you have no clue, you've not done anything. But if you let go at that moment, that's when the trust breaks. And that's when that person is never going to come back to you. So be a pillar of support. Just stand there. Make that trust. Understand them, accommodate all the differences, the different things they're bringing to the plate. Look at communication. Communication between two individuals, enabling them to be able to talk about their different experiences, is what is extremely essential. Again, addressing religion, spirituality, taking into account these different practices, extremely important, and so is involving the family. In India, we have family structures which are very, very enmeshed. We cannot discount the family, even if there has been domestic violence, domestic abuse at any level. We still have to look at the family as well and take care of those aspects as well and get them as involved in the process as is possible. Coming to the last part of my presentation, what we emphasize is the 7 C's of care. I'm not going to go into details of this because I've already spoken a bit about it. Concern, which means empathy, compassion, understanding, applying all of that, showing your competence, making the person feel that you know what you're doing. Because even if you have all the concern in the world and you don't know what you're doing, that person is not coming back to you and talking about anything. Communicating, allowing them the space to discuss their experiences without letting them feel that they're being judged or that you're being biased. Taking into account the cultural aspects which have been highlighted by my colleagues previously, building in a sense of cohesion, bringing in a little bit of cheerfulness, not inappropriate but appropriate, very, very carefully in such situations, and being consistent in your presence, in what you're stating, and being persistent with your efforts. Most importantly, bring a human face to care. Just the fact that you as an individual are available to that person is more than enough to take care of a lot of things. Thank you.